Hello and welcome to the Learning Lounge with Attensi. We're here for episode 11, which is absolutely mind-blowing since we started these back at the start of the year around February. But I say this every week with another very special guest, our very own Upa. Upa, introduce yourself, tell us a bit about what you do here at Attensi.
Thank you for having me, Dean.
Pleasure.
It's good to be here. I've been at Attensi nearly 5 years now. And my main role is as a senior manager within our customer success function, looking after pharma clients, principally pharma and healthcare clients. But I also wear another hat, which is more on the business development side. Quite focused on AI and some of our authoring tools.
So after 5 years, Upa, you've made it. You're on the show, so you've finally career highlight. So yes. Welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Dean.
And of course, no great surprise, we're going to talk about a hot subject at the moment, a hot topic, that being AI. So we'll jump straight in. So Upa, so anybody watching this, how would you describe Gen AI? How would you define it?
Yeah, what is it? Right, so it's a subset of artificial intelligence, which uses algorithms and programming to generate a completely new set of outputs and content, whether it's text, images, video, design, etc. A really good sort of analogy which Forbes have said about how to think about it really is think of artificial intelligence as a highly skilled worker, and think of generative AI as an innovative artist.
Amazing. I like that. Yeah. So I am Gen AI, but we'll move on. So regarding the workplace, just kind of high level, how's Gen AI, put my teeth back in, Gen AI, how's that transforming or supporting the workplace, I should say?
Keeping it really simple, two things for me, productivity and creativity. On the first point, I think it really releases employees, workers to be able to apply their time and their intellect to value add activities. Kind of gets you sort of 90% of the way there with a lot of tasks, whether it's automation of sort of manual tasks and or it's improving the quality of your work or kind of giving you a first draft of content. I guess an example of the creativity side of things is you or I in a more sort of commercial setting might use it for reaching out to a prospect and crafting that email, maybe finding out more about a new sector or, writing up a sales campaign. But some of our graphic designers, for example, use tools such as Midjourney to generate amazing new designs, which are inconceivable before. Yeah. They're able to use a prompt to do that, which is quite impressive.
Yeah, I love that. And I think just from personal experience, support that creativity piece that, if you have even the basics of even the basics of an idea, I know that AI can really support in helping you bring that to life. Something that I would advocate and may have used a few times. So trends, what are we seeing right now? So trends in AI.
Yeah, I think first things first, just how easily integrable it is. I think with the advent of APIs, using an AI or using an LLM has never been easier, never been more accessible. Whether you're a freelance developer, whether you're a sort of a budding startup, or whether you're like a global enterprise company, you can grab a piece of the action just with a click of a button, which has completely changed the game, and I think will continue to. The second point, interestingly, is the proliferation of multimodal models. Now, if I was to break that down, you would
please do.
Previously, perhaps Siri or Alexa might be audio in, audio out.
Yeah.
Similarly, maybe a couple of years ago, you might have had GPTs which were text in, text out. And what's happening now is you're able to input different mediums and get output of different mediums of your choice. So much so that we're at a point now with companies such as Anthropic, who've got a tool called Claude, brilliant tool, where you can actually input very basic code and text prompts, and it'll actually generate an HTML website for you. And even more impressive, within the same tool, giving it a really good prompt, again with a little bit of technical design, it's able to build the basic architecture of a web-based app. Wow. So we've got to a point now where we're well beyond just text and audio and that kind of thing. and getting to a point where you can build apps and websites.
Rather a like for like, more than a like for like return, right?
Exactly. And I think probably the last trend, and probably quite meaningful for Attensi, is the rise in AI assistants. So how many times have you been trying to book a holiday or look at some nice new garments? Certainly. And you've seen that chatbot appear and you start to talk with it. And you're just begging, like, when can this be over? I want to speak to someone human about something. I guess now where we're at is those assistants have developed, or we've developed, a human-like intelligence for an AI assistant. And companies, like big software companies like Salesforce and Microsoft, have been building these on top of their tools. So Salesforce have got Einstein, which is a brilliant tool, sits on top of their Force.com platform. Similarly, Microsoft Copilot sits on top of the Microsoft Office suite and helps people to use those tools, right?
Certainly does.
Yeah, and we've actually built our own beta version of an AI assistant, which sits across our authoring tools, and we're sort of prototyping it now. So I'm really excited for what we're going to be doing in that space. Big trend.
Does sound pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So why is it, in your opinion, why has it exploded now, or why is it so important?
Explosion is definitely the right word. I think there's a lot of hype around Gen AI in general, a lot of media coverage, but the two things which concretely have kind of paved the way for where we're at now are commercialization and therefore accessibility. On the first point, about 18 months ago, there was a huge partnership deal between Microsoft and OpenAI, $10 billion deal. And it kind of married the advanced generative technology of OpenAI with the sheer computing might and power of Microsoft, and kind of presented a paradigm shift in sort of the GPT that we use today and the accessibility, right? So it kind of brought in a completely new age of, wow, this is a very, very powerful
tool. So accessibility and almost usability.
Yeah, exactly. It just means that, you don't need to anymore have sort of a technical background. Someone like myself or yourself from not sort of technical background,
okay,
can put you in.
I was a little bit worried what you were going to say, Loomba. That's fine.
Are going to be able to have that data fluency. And I suppose going back to the commercial bit, because it is so important, right? The more money flows into a sector, like the more it's going to proliferate. I think I saw a stat that across the last 18 months or so, there've been hundreds of deals totaling $50 billion of sort of strategic investment flows. And it's the Metas, the Googles, the big companies investing in Anthropic, Inflection, OpenAI, these kind of companies, and sort of strategically allocating funds to stay competitive.
Yeah. So this makes a lot of sense, but how does this, I guess people kind of watching this episode, I think in their mind is, okay, got that, makes sense, kind of knew that, or that's helpful, it's reinforced what I know, but how does this translate into the workplace, or how can I make it translate into the workplace?
It's
almost like, what's the opportunity?
What's the opportunity? It's a very interesting time. I think we're at an inflection point between just it being used at the personal level and the, shall we say, like the organizational adoption of generative AI. And there's a McKinsey study which really goes into a lot of detail about the need for and the trend towards the shift from individual experimentation towards strategic value capture. And what that looks like is employees are really good at adopting this software and these kind of tools for themselves, right? Day to day, like, as you said, you've used it, so have I. We all do, a lot of us would do in our day to day, but it's much, much slower and much more clunky for an organization to adopt such technology. So there was a really interesting survey or work trends index from Microsoft and LinkedIn, which showed that 80% of workers bring some sort of AI tool to their day-to-day without any mandate or direction from their company. So it kind of begs the question, with whom does the benefit lie when the AI is essentially invisible? So what we're seeing, and I suppose from an Attensi perspective, is business functions, units such as L&D, sort of starting to think more holistically around, right, how do we adopt these tools? How do we think about this technology? There are pressures and expectations to do that. And I suppose the first step really is thinking about how to address the skill set gap so that your employees, when they're launched with a new technology, that they can use it. And I think for us in the conversation, certainly that I'm having with customers and prospects, sort of the question that we're asked is, right, okay, so you have this shiny new tool, but what does it actually bring to the table? And I think how we differentiate ourselves is we allow those L&D units to be able to build a really good first draft of content at pace and then tweak it and iterate on it with precision to create really good
first draft content. Again, right? That scenario.
Exactly.
So it makes a lot of sense. We talk about like supporting with customer conversations sort of type scenarios. Have you got an example of that?
Yeah, an exercise that I love to do is often ask a prospect or a customer that, could you tell me how long it takes someone in your L&D team or like an instructional designer to build an e-learning or a module or a topic which we can equate to an Attensi module. And then myself perhaps either build that or do a side-by-side analysis showing how long it would take to use our authoring tool, Creator, to build that same thing. And the multiples, Dean, are phenomenal. And we're talking 2, 3, sometimes 5 times faster, even more. I'll caveat that.
Well, we've got a good example coming up in a little bit, right? Maybe of what that looks like.
Exactly, but it's the multiples which are really huge, and I think it allows certainly myself in these conversations to answer a key question, which is like, how do we quantify productivity? In that same survey that I mentioned, that the Work Trends Index, I think 60% of leaders are unsure of how to quantify productivity in AI. And that means that there's probably a gap in terms of them investing in it, them adopting it. And so when we're able to go and show that this is how quickly you can create content at higher quality outputs, it kind of, the ROI speaks for itself.
Yeah, it speaks volumes. And, and I think hopefully we've gone from the days of, although I still see lots of funnies, particularly on LinkedIn, of people scared to admit that they used AI to help them do their job, like there's something wrong with it, but it's here, it's a mechanism to support. And the example you've given is obviously an impact on time, which is such a valuable commodity. So kind of, again, I'm always going to ask you in your opinion, but how did we get into AI, and what's our history here at Attensi with AI?
So I had a really good chat with some of our product managers a few weeks ago, and I asked them the same question, because it's such a curious thing to know. And they said it just made sense. It made sense. I loved it. Well, good. Can go home now.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of answered that. Next question. Yeah.
It's essentially, if you think about the kind of stuff that we do, the kind of simulations that we build, we need written content, we need small games designed, we need dialogues to be written up, and we need them voiced.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, what LLMs can do is such a good use case. It's such a great fit for what we do. It's kind of a no-brainer. So we started to prototype dialogues and mini games, so small bite-sized playable content, and quickly found that we were able to create proof of concept very quickly using this technology, so playing around with early GPTs. And from there we decided to do a bit more research, a little bit of investment early on, and I think we really benefited from the first mover advantage. Kind of establishing ourselves in that space early on led us to, at this point, being quite market leading in terms of what we can do. There's definitely an element of, if you try to invest or get your teams and your technology stack ready when the market is ready, you're behind, because
of course
the market's already expecting that.
Yeah, and these things advance so quickly.
Yeah, there's an element of taking a bit of a risk, which I think for us really paid off.
So kind of, the next question related to that, and you've dropped some hints, but what are the current tools which we're using AI for? And obviously we've got something very exciting which is now launched, being Real Talk, but what are some of the user cases almost? I suppose to give a bit of context as to how, why we built those tools, going back to our
our no-code authoring tool, Creator, which I certainly spend most of my days in. About 3 years ago, we started to see more and more of our clients take an interest in building content themselves, and so we started to give them access and enable them to create content at massive scale on their own terms through our platform, which has been extremely powerful, and we're constantly improving that. Last year, we pushed the button and said, right, we're going to launch a layer of generative AI on top of this tool that you're using, and there's going to be AI assistant features available. And so I suppose if I was to say, there's sort of 4 or 5 different elements within that tool which are AI focused. The first is being able to give it a prompt and saying, create me a handful of mini games, bite-sized content. The level above, and it can be on any topic, right? It can be customer service, can be onboarding, can be sales excellence. The next level is taking it to a point that's more relevant for the topic and the matter at hand, and feeding it a file, like a PDF. So with that prompt, you give it a PDF, and you instantly have a response which is going to be more curated.
Which I think is the most amazing thing.
And if you think that's... So there's more. So we've gone through 2. The next level is being able to create a dialogue that I mentioned. So it could be with a customer, could be with a line report, right, or a manager, and being able to say, hey, can you create me that dialogue, and it will build it for you, and it will then voice it for you. So we say, this is the avatar I've chosen, can you please choose this accent and voice it this way? But what's incredible then is kind of, and I think what differentiates us is really that point of AI assist to say, okay, well, can you make this person, can you make him a little bit more angry, or can you make her showing pride for an achievement, for example, and completely animate everything to do with her facial expression or her movements. So you're able to tweak things so much and say, can you make this sentence shorter or longer? And kind of the final element is around translation. So that's taking the sort of 3 or 4 things I mentioned so far and being able to translate them to, I think we have 50 different languages. We're able to do that. And this leads me on to actually a really interesting story. I had a moment, like a really proud moment, being at Attensi recently with, I was demonstrating this to a pharma client of mine out in China, and they were looking to see how we could use it for their sales excellence for a new drug, a new product launch. And so we did exactly the process that I just mentioned. We fed it a PDF, which was on sales excellence, did the whole thing, including a dialogue with a doctor, and then pressed translate, and that whole thing went into Chinese. And honestly, Dean, they got up from their seats. It was virtual. They got up from their seats in disbelief and in awe as to, in a matter of 4, 5, 6 minutes, we built this whole module and translated it into Mandarin. It was pretty breathtaking.
It's pretty amazing to be able to do that in the moment as well. Which kind of leads me on to another point here, Upa. So I sat with Upa a few days ago and said, wouldn't it be great on this live to be able to show off kind of what Upa's speaking to. So we sat down, Upa's created our module, which I'm hoping you can now see on the screen. This is one module, so one small set of training. And we debated on what to do it on or create the training on. So we thought we'd stick to a hot topic, which I know is dear to many people's minds, and that's how to make a good old-fashioned cup of tea. And you should be able to see that on screen now. But Upa, I think, the training speaks for itself, but just bringing together a lot of the stuff you've talked about thus far. So using AI, this simple module was created, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we'd normally say around 10 modules to a subject of training, right? So let's just say, I don't know, service at a till point, we'd say that would be 10 components, 10 modules. So this is one module.
Yes, exactly.
But I think, to be really blunt, tell us about this. So how long did this take you to make? And I know the answer to this, but, for our viewers' sake, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I think in terms of course, a caveat that it is a basic universal thing that we're looking at in terms of tea, but probably 30 to 60 seconds to build a prompt, like a really good prompt, because everything starts with that in generative AI, and then about a minute to 90 seconds of sort of latent time where it's wearing away and starting to build those modules, and then the mini games, and then the final piece was perhaps adding a few generative AI imagery to just make it look aesthetically pleasing. And the final bit was tweaking one module because of the phrasing, and that's applying that.
Yeah, and I think there was literally one
where we just thought,
there was one game inside the module, wasn't
exactly.
there? It wasn't quite right, and it's quite a subjectional kind of topic. How to make a great cup of tea.
We'll leave it to the viewers.
Yeah,
right?
so if you don't agree on any of the points, please drop them in the comments. There's no right or wrong on some of these for sure.
But this whole process took sub 4 minutes, and then we have one of those. For example, 10 modules. So if we were to scale it up, and let's say it was, of course, let's say a bigger topic, customer service, sales excellence, or coaching, then that suddenly in less than an hour, for example, it was 40 minutes, let's give it an hour grace period.
Yeah,
you have a playable solution addressing learning objectives.
Yeah, which I think is the point that blows my mind. So realistically, and Nupa, you've mentioned, and that's grown over the years, but our customers' use of our no-code platform creator, being able to effectively have something land on your desk that's urgent and important, and being able to create a whole section of training, so 10 modules on our subject heading, being able to create that in realistically, as you've described, like 1 hour, including edits, I think is absolutely mind-blowing. So kind of that's the good stuff. So what are some of the challenges we're seeing right now, though?
I think with any topic around AI and companies working together, there's the data privacy element. It's one of the most common questions that we face is sort of customers saying, where does my data go? How is it processed, et cetera, et cetera. And I think there's always going to be reluctance around working with a third party. I think it's more of something which is for us sort of an educational piece. And reassurance from our legal team, our IT security, in terms of the safety measures that we have in place and the protocols, rather than sort of roadblocks necessarily. So still a challenge, something we have to kind of wrangle with a little bit. The next is interesting one, that this sort of landscape is ever evolving, right? There's always something new, something hot and popular, which is available, like OpenAI releasing different features and functionality all the time. It's important that us as Attensi don't get caught up in the maelstrom of what's hot at the moment and stay sort of strategically deliberate on what we want to focus on. I think that's what's differentiated us so far, focusing on what's going to be like value add and impactful for us. Also, the element of typically rolling out new features for us has been quite easy. It's been straightforward, but AI is a different beast when it comes to testing. It's non-deterministic. So if I say, hey, Dean, can you run this same prompt, for example, 10 times, you will get 10 different answers. Because it's non-deterministic. It's a deep learning model. So that, of course, makes the testing process harder. I think probably the most important challenge is change management. So I think leaders are always a bit adverse when investing in a new technology, kind of thinking, is there going to be a mindset shift needed? Am I going to have to train my employees on something which might meet resistance? So that's something which is definitely, something we need to focus on.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. The data privacy, I think, speaks for itself, and I'm sure was a concern for many, as it probably has been for us in many ways. I think the last session we held was with James, and James talked around this as well, a little piece, and we take it that seriously that James himself has created some internal training on data privacy for everybody here at Attensi. I think we showed, and in the last episode, if you've seen it or haven't seen it, you can head over to my profile page and watch that. There's a small clip of what that training looks like, just to kind of help advocate how important it is to us as a business as well. And it's obviously very important that everyone that works here understands how the data privacy is an issue and how it works and how it's secure. Okay, big question then. Your opinion, again. What's the future hold for us? You heard it here first.
There are a couple of things. One, I'll finish off with the fact that we're already starting to embed some of the future trends into our organization. I think first things first, integration with other companies' AIs is something which is really interesting because, so far it's something which we've tried to explore. But as I said at the start, a trend is this whole technology becoming more and more integrable. So by us being able to integrate with a customer or a partner's AI model ourselves, then we're able to unlock a level of relevance and personalization which was unfathomable before. Then it's something that our CTO is exploring a lot. Similar to this, thus far we've been using and leveraging OpenAI, GPTs, right? And what we're starting to look at and explore, can we do this, is building our own proprietary technology around LLMs, which just means we can, I like the word, attensify the responses and the outputs and make them just even more relevant to our models and our, should we say, like our pedagogic philosophy, if I could put it that way.
Nice.
So that's something which is really interesting. And I think most importantly is the proliferation of agentic workflows. And what agentic workflows are a set of AI agents essentially working together in tandem on a specific task using a sort of a step-based approach, collaborating together autonomously and needing minimal human input. And the benefit of, I suppose, the combination of those different AI agents all performing slightly small subtasks towards a greater task is just a much higher precision, accuracy, personalized outputs, for example. And I think for what we do, that is, the results will be immeasurable in terms of impact in a good way.
Agreed.
And I think one space that we see that, for example, is with Real Talk, which our CTO and our CEO are talking about a lot at the moment. You've seen it in the press. That's very much, underpinned by this new technology of agentic workflows. So I think that's very much our secret sauce in terms of marrying those workflows with powerful GPTs, like GPT-4, for example, at the moment, to be able to build really high quality, high impact products.
I also think it's a really good example of we've always lived in a world, right, of how fast technology moves. Just take that as almost like a subject header. I think agentic workflow, agentic AI is a great example of the progression of AI, if that makes sense, and at speed. And you've mentioned Real Talk, so we've more coming up on agentic AI and agentic workflows very soon in another show. But yeah, absolutely would agree. Upa, what can I say? Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. If you'd like to get in the driving seat of any of our solutions, and Upa's mentioned Real Talk, our latest solution, where you're able to have conversations with virtual humans, all you've got to do is reach out and connect. If you would like to watch this again, you can head over to my profile page or to our YouTube channel and watch it on demand. But thanks for being here, and we'll see you all again soon.